All right, let's talk about Apache Kafka. I know, the name sounds kind of intense, right? But trust me, it's this secret powerhouse running behind the scenes of so many apps you use literally every single day. So what we're going to do is pull back that curtain and really figure out what makes it tick.
Here's the thing. Behind every super smooth, slick app that you love, there's almost always this crazy, tangled mess. We're talking about a chaotic web of data that's all trying to zip from point A to point B at insane speeds.
So how does that even work? I mean, how does all that critical information get exactly where it needs to be, like instantly and without failing? How do you keep the whole system from just grinding to a halt?
Okay, to get that answer, we first have to understand the problem, and it's a big one. Just picture a massive citywide traffic jam, but for data. It's this tangled web of connections that, honestly, turns into a total nightmare for the people building these systems.
And it always starts off so simple. Imagine you're building an app. You have one part, let's call it Service A, and it needs to talk to another part, Service B. Seems easy enough, right? You just connect them. A to B. Done.
But then things get complicated. Suddenly, Service A also needs to send data to Service C and D and E. Oh, and Service B? Now it needs to talk to Service F. You can already see where this is headed, can't you? It just explodes into total chaos. Fast.
Yeah, there's a name for this mess. Developers call it spaghetti architecture, and for good reason. All these systems are so tightly tangled up, they're tightly coupled, which means if you change one little thing over here, something completely unrelated might just break over there. It's an absolute headache to track, it's super fragile, and forget about trying to scale it. No way.
So how on earth do you untangle all this digital spaghetti? Well, this is where Kafka makes its grand entrance. Think of it as the ultimate organizer, the central hub that's designed to fix this exact problem.
And seriously, the difference is like night and day. Look at that before picture. That's the spaghetti mess we were talking about. But then, look at the after. With Kafka, you get this beautiful, clean hub-and-spoke setup. Everything just flows neatly through one central place. It's simple. The parts aren't all tangled up anymore, they're decoupled. And it's built from the ground up to handle massive growth.
Okay, so what is Kafka, really? The official term is a distributed streaming platform. Yeah, I know, that's a mouthful. A much better way to picture it is like the central nervous system for a company's data. All the signals, all the messages, they all flow through it.
Right. Distributed streaming platform still sounds a little, abstract. So let's break it down with a super simple analogy that makes it all click. Forget about tech for a second. Let's just think about a good old-fashioned post office. I want you to imagine that Kafka is this giant central post office for every single piece of data in a company. And this isn't just any post office. This one never closes, it never loses a piece of mail, and it runs with incredible efficiency. So, in our post office, who's the first person we meet? The person sending the letter, right? Well, in the Kafka world, we call them a producer. A producer is just any app or service that needs to send some data. It writes the letter or the message and drops it off at the Kafka post office.
Okay, what's next? The topic. Now, when you go to the post office, you're not just throwing your letter into a giant bin. You're sending it to a specific address. A topic in Kafka is like a specific P.O. box or a mail slot. It's just a category. So you might have a topic for user_signups and a totally separate one for product_orders. It's all about keeping things organized.
And that brings us to our final piece, the consumer. Who is this? Well, this is the person who has the key to that P.O. box. They don't care about all the other mail in the building. They just walk up to the specific box they're interested in, the one they've subscribed to, and they pick up their mail. Simple as that. A consumer is an app that reads data from a specific topic. So let's put it all together. What does the flow look like? It's 3 simple steps. 1. The producer sends a message to a topic. 2. Kafka, our amazing post office, takes that message and stores it in the right P.O. box. And 3. The consumer, who's subscribed to that P.O. box, comes along and reads the message whenever it wants. See? It's clean, it's simple, and most importantly, the sender and receiver never even have to know about each other. Okay, that post office analogy makes sense, right? We get how it works. But now, let's get to the really exciting part. Why does this matter? Why is Kafka such a massive game changer out there in the real world?
Well, the benefits are just huge.
First off, scale. We're talking about systems that can handle trillions of messages a day. That's mind-boggling. It's also super durable and reliable. Your data's safe. This is what makes real-time instant processing possible. But honestly, the biggest win is that decoupling thing we talked about. The producer can just shout its message into the void, and it doesn't have to care one bit about who's listening on the other end.
And I guarantee you've experienced this without even knowing it. You know that instant text you get from your bank saying, "Was this you?" That's probably Kafka checking for fraud in real time. Or when you're tracking your pizza delivery driver on a map, watching that little car move, yep, that's Kafka. Those eerily good recommendation engines on streaming services, you guessed it. These are all perfect examples of what Kafka makes possible.
All right, let's wrap this up. If you're going to remember one thing from all this, what should it be? Well, it's really simple. Kafka is all about turning absolute chaos into perfect clarity. It takes that nightmare data traffic jam we imagined at the beginning, and it just transforms it. It turns it into a massive, multi-lane superhighway where information can just flow freely and safely at unbelievable speeds.
And that kind of leaves us with a cool question to think about, right? We've talked about how this works for huge tech companies and their data, but the idea itself, this idea of a central hub, it's universal. So think about it. What tangled, messy process in your world could seriously use a system like this?